Over the past several decades, cruise ships have become larger, more advanced, and offer more amenities to travelers than ever before. So today, we're going to be taking a look at 15 of the largest cruise ships ever built. Number 15. Wonder of the Seas. Royal Caribbean finally unveiled their newest ship and made it ready for the masses in March of 2002 and christened it the Wonder of the Seas. And it's really not hard to see how they came up with the name, because this huge cruise ship is really a wonder. She's the largest cruise ship on the water today, coming in at 1,188 feet long and 210 feet wide, with a serious gross tonnage of 246,000 tons, and has a maximum cruising speed of 22 knots, which is pretty fast for a ship of this girth. And she certainly needs all of that space, because the Wonder of the Seas can accommodate just under 7,000 guests across her 2,800 staterooms and needs a crew of 2,300 to keep her up and running 24 hours a day. Obviously, this cruise ship is absolutely huge, and you can only imagine how easy it is to get lost in here. But perhaps that's for the best, because she's got a ton to explore and discover. The Wonder of the Seas has a total of 18 decks across 18 neighborhoods. Each one is more interesting than the last, like Central Park and even the Suite neighborhood, which is strictly for VIPs. Guests can run into the Aqua Theater, which is her outdoor live entertainment venue, or take a plunge off a 30-foot diving board into one of her many pools. She's also got the Ultimate Abyss, which is the tallest water slide on the ocean today at 150 feet above sea level. Number 14. Symphony of the Seas. Whenever the ship is nearby, we hear a symphony. When the Symphony of the Seas left port for her maiden voyage, she broke the record for the largest cruise ship in the world. She's big. She's working with 18 decks and measures 1,188 feet long, making her longer than a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. And with a beam of 215 feet, she may be even wider than some of them too. Across her 18 decks, 16 of them are for guest use and hold 22 different restaurants, 24 pools, 2,700 cabins, and she even has a park with over 20,000 tropical plants. The Symphony of the Sea is so big that she's actually broken up into 7 neighborhoods, which all have their own vibe, which kind of makes her feel more like a city on the sea than an actual cruise ship. And that's a good thing too. It lets the cruise last for weeks at a time, because you're going to need as much time as you can to get to explore her and enjoy every nook and cranny on board. It's amazing. Number 13. Harmony of the Seas. Just barely beating out the Symphony of the Seas is her sister ship, the Harmony of the Seas. And when I say barely, I mean barely, because while she has the same length as her sister, she's got a width of 217 feet across. That's just 2 feet more. Sorry, Symphony. Another cruise liner operating under the Royal Caribbean umbrella, the Harmony of the Seas offers much of the same as her aforementioned sister ship and has a maximum capacity of 6,600 guests at a time, and requires a full crew of over 2,000 to keep things up and running and make sure everyone has fresh towels. Her maiden voyage, though, was in 2016, 2 years before the Symphony began, and she's got a slightly smaller gross tonnage at 226,000 gross tons. Number 12. Queen Mary 2. Anybody who's anybody has heard of this one. The Queen Mary 2 is one of the most recognizable ocean liners in the world, and for good reason too. Aside from offering some great vacations, she's absolutely huge. This British transatlantic ocean liner was christened in 2003, and 19 years later she's the only ocean liner in the world still in service. She really is one of a kind, but just how big is the Queen Mary 2? Well, for starters, she's well over 1,100 feet long, 236 feet high, with a gross tonnage of 150,000 tons. She needs all of that room because she offers her passengers 14 decks and the crew another 4, and has a capacity for 2,695 happy travelers and requires a crew of 1,200 to keep things up and running around the clock. She's living proof that being big isn't always so easy. And when you step inside, you'll see how the Queen Mary 2 lives up to her name, because not only is she incredibly elegant, but she is palatial as well. Being on board the last ocean liner in the world is really like being on board a floating castle. Number 11. Club Med 2. Club Med 2 is without a doubt the coolest cruise ship in the world. It doesn't look like your typical cruise or ocean liner. Instead, it looks like a giant white pirate ship. She's a 5-masted stay-sail schooner under total computer control. Club Med 2's sails are all operated electronically and add the power of the wind to her diesel-electric power. She was first launched in 1992 in Le Havre, France, so she's been around for a long time, but she's obviously doing something right because she's also one of the hottest cruise ships around and also happens to be one of the largest of her kind in the world. So how big are we talking? Club Med 2 can carry up to 368 passengers and a crew of just over 200. She's about 636 feet long, another 260 feet high, and with a draft of about 17 feet. Plus, she's got 8 different decks where people can relax, eat, and of course, party. You can see her sailing around the Adriatic and Mediterranean seas, flowing through anchorages that larger vessels just can't reach. Number 10. Carnival Mardi Gras. Who doesn't love Mardi Gras? One of the famous Carnival Cruise Line's newest ships is their Mardi Gras, which finally made its world debut in the summer of 2021. The name Mardi Gras holds some importance as well, as it commemorates the first ever Carnival ship, which made its debut all the way back in 1972, which was just 27,000 gross tons and only 650 feet long. But this new and improved Mardi Gras kicks it up to 11 with a gross tonnage of 180,000 tons and measuring in at 1,130 feet long. This bigger cruise ship is also literally better because it's the first cruise ship within the United States to run on the more eco-friendly liquefied natural gas. The Carnival Mardi Gras has enough space in its 2,600 staterooms for about 6,400 passengers and require an additional crew of 1,700 to keep it in constant tip-top shape. She's got 6 different themed areas throughout her many decks, one of which pays homage to her namesake, the French Quarter, which is home to French bars and restaurants including an Emerald's Bistro and Brass Magnolia. But the Mardi Gras really kicks it up a notch with its biggest onboard attraction, the first ever roller coaster at sea. The coaster is 187 feet and reaches a top speed of 40 miles an hour across 80 feet of track, making the Mardi Gras not only one of the biggest, but also one of the coolest cruise options out there. Number 9. Oasis of the Seas. As we've seen so far, the Oasis class of cruise ships from Royal Caribbean are some of the best and biggest in the world, and while they continue to release bigger and better vessels, it all had to start somewhere. The Oasis of the Seas was first launched in 2009, and it's the first of its kind. She's 1,187 feet long with a gross tonnage of 220,000 tons, which made her a full 5 times bigger than the Titanic. And yeah, she's got much better luck as well, because she's still up and running. She got a big overhaul at the end of 2019 and can now accommodate an absurd 5,600 guests and her crew of 2,100. She may just be slightly smaller than her sister vessel, but the Oasis of the Seas still has 16 decks, many of which offer the same amenities as the rest of her class, like the flow rider simulators, multiple water slides, and even a sports bar, and an arcade for the folks who never really grew up, like me. The Oasis has 7 very distinct neighborhoods, some of which employ state-of-the-art technology like video walls and interactive touchscreens. And since this sort of thing is pretty important in this modern age, the Oasis of the Seas also has the fastest internet connection for any cruise line. High seas, high-speed internet. Number 8. MSC World Europa. A brand new cruise ship to the world, the MSC World Europa finally set sail in 2022 and is not only the newest but also the largest ship in her class. She's got a mean gross tonnage of 205,700 tons and comes in at 1,092 feet long. And because she's the first LNG-propelled ship, she's able to reach a max cruising speed of 22.7 knots, which is pretty fast for something that big. But because the MSC World Europa is one of the more modern ships at sea, you had better believe that she's got the most up-to-date technology. Her interior is full of the latest and greatest and offers modern designs, including a 295-foot-long promenade where anyone and everyone can soak up all of the amazing views. But half of that space is covered with LED screens that offer some pretty psychedelic sights. The MSC World Europa boasts a total of 21 decks, each of which is named after a famous international city like London or Lisbon, and can accommodate up to 6,700 passengers, as well as her crew of 2,100. But things get really cool as you cross the threshold of all of her neighborhoods and districts like the Quiet Zone, an adult-only pool that's always way more fun, but when the kid in you just can't hold it in anymore, there are plenty of pulse-pounding venues like the roller rink and bumper cars. And you can't forget about their water park either, which is one of the largest on any cruise line in the world. Number 7. Costa Smeralda. One of the first of the XL-class vessels in Costa Cruises' fleet is their Costa Smeralda. An Italian cruise liner, the Costa Smeralda first hit the water in 2019 and is one of the largest cruise ships to come out of Europe at 1,106 feet in length and weighing 185,000 gross tons. She's also one of the first cruise ships to run on liquefied natural gas as she cruises through the world's oceans, meaning she's not leaving much of a carbon footprint in her wake either. It's a stellar implementation and is undoubtedly setting the stage for the future of all seafaring vessels. The Costa Smeralda can hold up to 6,500 passengers and her 1,678 crew members as she saves the planet 1 nautical mile at a time. Once on board, cruisers can enjoy the 11 different restaurants and 19 bars and lounges, meaning there's really something for everyone here. But the Costa Smeralda is pretty big on food too, and there's one restaurant on board in particular, the Restaurant Archipelago, which employs world-renowned chefs who cook up new regional meals each night, meaning you'll never eat the same thing twice. There are also plenty of live performances to see night after night, the spa, 19 pools, hot tubs, an aqua park, and a club to leave the young kids in while the parents go out for some much-needed fun. Number 6. Costa Toscana. Another recent addition to the world of cruise liners, the Costa Toscana debuted in 2022 to thunderous applause. She's the second of the Italian XL-class vessels and is now the flagship of her fleet. She's quite similar to her sister vessel, the Costa Smeralda, and is another liquefied natural gas-powered ship, which also has a gross tonnage of 185,000 tons and comes in at 1,106 feet long. She's also working with 2,600 staterooms, which allows her to accommodate up to 6,500 passengers at a time, plus the 1,600 crew members. And while that certainly is a lot of people, they can all disperse amongst her 30 eateries, all of which serve up the most high-quality food and drink you'll ever find while out on the Big Blue. But her big centerpiece, the Colosseo, is where it's at. Because she's an Italian cruise ship, the Costa Toscana pays homage to her heritage, with much of her architectural details, and her Colosseo really takes the cake, as it's modeled after the Italian piazzas you'll find all over the country. There are also plenty of opportunities on board to see live bands and DJs, but if shaking your groove thing isn't so much your style, then be sure to head out to the highest point of the ship at 213 feet above sea level and stare out as the ocean stretches for miles in each direction. Number 5. P&O Cruises Iona. One of the biggest cruise ships in the world is the LNG-powered British cruise ship called the P&O Cruises Iona. This cruise line is one of the best family-friendly ships to hit the 7 seas, and it's a monster when she's out there. The Iona has a gross tonnage of 184,000 tons and measures in at 1,129 feet long. She offers all 5,200 of her guests 16 separate decks, which includes all sorts of fun things like the glass-roof Sky Dome, 30 different bars and restaurants serving up everything from fine dining to down-home cooking. And the Iona even has her very own gin distillery. And after dinner, the Iona's guests still have a ton of fun things to do at night, like the Limelight Club, aerial performances, and even an adults-only supper club, featuring all sorts of live music, or can catch a show in one of her 5 theaters. The Iona feels like its very own city on the ocean, and it even has its own outdoor movie theater. Number 4. Aida Nova. The German cruise line Aida Cruises launched their first ever Helios-class ship, and they made sure that this new Aida Nova was a doozy. The Aida Nova is a mighty vessel weighing 183,000 gross tons and measures in at 1,106 feet long. But her real claim to fame is how she gets around. While we've seen a number of cruise ships here already that use liquefied natural gas for power, the German-made Aida Nova is the first in the world to do it. Everyone else is just a copycat. She offers 20 separate decks for patrons, and there's truly something for everyone to enjoy here. And she houses 20 different types of staterooms as well, like her 2-deck penthouse suite, which sounds absolutely amazing. The Aida Nova has more than enough space for 5,200 passengers and takes just 1,500 crew members to keep her up and running as she sails the seas. But the thing about this cruise ship is that you don't have to be on board to appreciate all of her majestic beauty, and even the folks passing by at port can catch a good glimpse of what she's working with. She features her signature exterior design that makes her look like the belle of the ball, with big bright red lips at the bow and big blue and yellow eyes on her port and starboard sides. Sure, it is kind of funny looking, but it also makes it so that she's one of the most recognizable cruise ships out there today. Number 3. Aida Cosma. Sister ship of the amazing Aida Nova, the Aida Cosma is one of the German fleet's top dogs when it comes to cruise lines. She first set sail in 2021 and has been dominating not just the cruise line industry but the oceans themselves in that short time period. She's another LNG-powered vessel and weighs just about 183,000 gross tons, and just like her sister, is 1,106 feet long. She's got 2,600 cabins spread across her 20 decks, but she can hold just a few more guests than her sister can, with enough space for 5,228 happy campers. And she takes a full crew of 1,551 to keep her chugging along with a minimal carbon footprint. And when you get on board the Aida Cosma, it's hard to not be overwhelmed by the 17 restaurants and 23 bars where you can rub shoulders with fellow travelers and get a good buzz. But if you're not hungry, then the cruise ship, of course, offers an entire pool area complete with hot tubs, an infinity pool overlooking the ocean, and awesome water slides that works a whole lot better than taking the stairs. But for the more athletic folks within her hull, there's a climbing wall and a running track too. It's awesome. Number 2. Norwegian Encore. No list of cruise liners is complete without the Norwegian Cruise Line. The Norwegian Encore is part of their Breakaway Plus class and weighs a whopping 169,000 gross tons and comes in at 1,094 feet in length. The Norwegian cruiser was built in 2019 and can ferry just under 4,000 guests at a time, along with their crew of about 1,700. There's a ton of stuff to do here too, like the usual bars and restaurants, but as you move towards the upper decks, that's where the real fun begins. For starters, the Norwegian Encore boasts the first racetrack at sea with her Norwegian Speedway. It involves an 1,100-foot track that'll take you through high-speed curves and take you a full 13 feet off the side of the ship. It's pretty intense, but it's also one of the cruise liner's biggest attractions. Even further up, though, you'll find the Haven, which is their exclusive ship within a ship that's reserved for those who can afford it. The Haven is full of VIP suites, villas, penthouses, and plenty of balconies that allow you to look down at the steerage below you. Anyone and everyone up in the Haven is treated to a 24-hour butler and concierge service, as well as a private sun deck. And who says Norway doesn't get any sun? Number 1. Allure of the Seas. The final cruise ship on this list is as big as it is alluring. The Allure of the Seas made her maiden voyage in the year 2010 and became the Royal Caribbean's second Oasis-class ship. And she's a big one, coming in at 1,187 feet long with a gross tonnage of 225,000 tons. She's truly a sight to behold, and when you see her coming into port, there really is no mistaking her for anyone else. Despite being a top-notch cruiser, she underwent some big upgrades just after 5 years of service in 2015, and now she can hold up to 5,400 passengers and another 2,300 crew members. She's got a grand total of 7 neighborhoods and 24 different places to eat across 18 decks. But with a ship of this size, what type of amenities is she offering? Well, there are 4 swimming pools and another 10 whirlpools, more bars and lounges than you can shake your finger at, and an ice skating rink, a basketball court, the 10-deck high zip line, 2 rock climbing walls, and 2 flow rider simulators. This cruise ship is absolutely ridiculous and feels more like an amusement park on the ocean than it does a calm, cool, collected cruise. But if extreme sports aren't quite your thing, the Allure of the Seas also offers actual Broadway productions.
Watch our Vehicles playlist for more top 15 videos about amazing vehicles. Sit back, relax, and binge watch all of our best vehicle videos.